Okay, my name is Ilyasa bin Yahya. I would like to present our introduction of assignment group. Okay, actually, what is meaning a tourism economy? Tourism economy is a constraint and on development such as social and community interest and the substantial use of tourism and recreation resource and also input into the production process. Microeconomic problem. Okay, microeconomic problem arise when the economy does not adequately achieve the goals of fuel employment, stability and economic growth. Okay, actually topic to be discussed in our assignment is unemployment rate. What is the unemployment rate? Unemployment rate is a measure that reflects the proportion of the labor force that is employed and actively seeking employment.
Hello and Assalamualaikum. My name is Ahmad Faisal bin Khairul Wahidin. My metric number is 2023131237 and I will be explaining about issue number 1 first, which is the impact of the pandemic and containment measure led to a severe contraction in economic activity where many people are unable to go to work and businesses could no longer operate. Basically, the COVID-19 pandemic has had a significant impact on the global economics, causing a severe contraction in economic activity. The primary reason for this contraction is the implementation of containment measures to slow down the spread of the virus. One of the main containment measures imposed by governments around the world were the implementation of lockdown and stay-at-home orders. This measure aimed to limit social interaction and reduce the transmission of the virus. As a result, many businesses had to shut down temporarily or operate with limited capacity. Sectors such as hospitality, tourism, retail and entertainment were particularly affected as people were unable or hesitant to go out and spend money. With business unable to operate normally, many people lose their job or face reduced working hours and income. This led to a decrease in consumer spending as people had less money to spend and uncertainty about the future. Consequently, business faced lower demand for their product and service, led to increase of the economic downturn. If the business are facing lower demand, how could they even pay their employees' salary?
Issue number 2 is an important microeconomic indicator. Actually, what is meaning of microeconomic indicator? Microeconomic indicator are static that measure the overall health of an economy. They are used by economists, business and government to track economic activity and make prediction about future economic growth. Here are some important microeconomic indicators. Firstly, gross domestic product is GDP. GDP is the total value of goods and service produced in an economy in a given period of time. It is a measure of the size of economy and is often used as a measure of economic growth. Second is unemployment rate. Is the percentage of the labor force that unemployed. Is a measure of the health of the labor market and can be used to strength of the economy. For third one is consumer price index is CPI. CPI is a measure of the price of goods and service purchased by consumer. It is measure of inflation, which is the rate or at which price are rising. For next, industrial production is IP. IP is a measure of output the manufacturing sector. It is measure of the head of the manufacturing sector can be used to of the economy.
Issue number 3.
COVID-19 only highlights the vulnerability of most business, particularly those reliant on air travel and tourism, but also resulted in an exponential growth in Malaysian employment. Simultaneously, internet commerce or trade and the gig economy grew tremendously. Many others were harmed by the abrupt and unexpected loss of their jobs. According to the report, many people have experienced difficulty, particularly those who were formerly in professional positions. Economic hard times caused by historical pandemics will enable us to establish a long-term impact on health derived directly from the current pandemic's mortality trends. But what about the ramification due to the disruption of everyday economic life when people become unemployed? The rapid, severe and widespread economic disruption caused by the implementation of the MCO to reduce the daily infections caused by the spread of the COVID-19 virus is one of the most prominent features in this pandemic. This pandemic may have less in common with other pandemics such as H1N1 swine flu 2009-2010 or the Spanish flu 1918 in the Delgado 2020. For example, the 1918 pandemic's immediate economic damage pales in comparison to the damage triggered by COVID-19 currently. While this pandemic can provide an insight into long-term social and physiological health effect, which is the direct effect, we need to look elsewhere to consider the long-term consequences of pandemic because of economic downturn, particularly for employment.
Issue number 4.
During national or local lockdown, people may temporarily suspend their job search due to the limit opportunities, health concern, and compliance with restriction. This can dampen the number of individuals actively seeking employment. Factors like limited job opening and government support programs can influence people's motivation to search for work. However, as a lockdown measure ease and the economy recover, job search activity is likely to resume. It is important to adapt job search strategies based on local guidelines and individual circumstances. The impact of lockdown on job searches and employment availability is temporary and varies depending on factors such as the severity and duration of the lockdown measures and the industry and overall economic condition.
Now, moving on to the last issue, which is the impact of COVID-19 pandemic has indeed been particularly severe for workers in the informal economy. The informal economy refers to the economic activities that are not regulated or protected by formal labour law, and workers in this sector often lack job security, social protection and access to formal benefits, making it challenging for them to seek support from the government or receive financial assistance during this crisis. This further increased their vulnerability and economic hardship. The implementation of lockdown and restriction on movement resulted in the closure of business, particularly in sectors such as street vending, small-scale retail, construction and domestic work, which are prevalent in the informal economy. Informal economy workers are often engaged in daily wage labour or self-employment, and they heavily rely on their daily earnings to meet their basic needs. They usually lack of saving and or safety nets, making them highly vulnerable to any disruption in their income. As a result, many informal workers were unable to continue their usual economic activities to comply with the lockdown measures, and resulting them to lose their source of income and livelihood.
There are several solutions that can be implemented to reduce unemployment rate. The first solution is providing the health and safety guidelines and support scheme for informal workers. For health and safety guidelines, the government should develop comprehensive health and safety guidelines specifically tailored to the needs of informal workers. These guidelines should address specific job roles and tasks such as housekeeping, food handling, tour guiding and transportation. Therefore, create a support scheme that offers financial assistance to informal workers in the tourism sector during times of unemployment or reduced income due to health and safety measures. Second solution is short-term welfare support with coverage from public work programs The short-term welfare support can be through activities such as destination beautification, infrastructure maintenance or cultural heritage preservation, and those activities we call it as a public work programs too. Develop public work programs specifically targeted at the tourism sector, which can provide temporary employment opportunities during periods of low tourism demand. Based on the main point to reduce unemployment rates, this short-term welfare support can be integrated with public work programs to provide additional financial security during the period of employment. Moreover, maintaining liquidity and rethinking operating models also is a solution for the issue of unemployment rate. The government needs to provide financial assistance and support the tourism businesses such as hotels, restaurants, and travel agencies. It is to help them maintain liquidity during periods of reduced demand or disruption. Otherwise, the government can offer grants, loans, or subsidies to tourism businesses, allowing them to retain their workforce and cover essential operating costs. Always encourage domestic tourism by promoting travel and staycations, particularly during times when international travel is restricted. Hence, they need to develop the attractive packages, promotions, and incentives to encourage locals to explore their own country. Besides, it can reduce unemployment rate and even more job opportunities are offered.
I will explain the next solution to reducing unemployment in Malaysia by adjusting to supply chain disruption and private sector development intervention. The government needs to ensure the availability of social protection program to support unemployed individuals by providing unemployment benefits, job placement service, skill training programs, and targeted support for vulnerable groups. Also, collaborate with the private sector to create employment opportunities through public-private partnership. This can involve joint ventures, outsourcing contract, and infrastructure projects that are executed in partnership with private company, leading to job creation. Next, invest in infrastructure projects that can stimulate job creations. This can include construction of road, bridge, public transportation system, and digital infrastructure, which not only create employment but also enhance overall economic productivity. Secondly, structural policies for resilience are one of the solutions to reducing unemployment. These structural policies aim to address the underlying causes of unemployment by focusing on long-term changes in the economy and labor market. These policies seek to create a more flexible, adaptable, and diversified economy that can withstand shocks and provide sustainable employment opportunities. By implementing structural reform, Malaysian country can enhance their resilience to economic fluctuations and create conditions conducive to job creation. For the example, in France, the increase in new unemployment claims in March and April 2020 was almost entirely driven by temporary agency workers and workers in temporary job whose contracts were not renewed.
In our conclusion of group assignment of an employment rate, it is important for policymakers, business, and society to address this issue effectively through appropriate policies, investment, and collaboration to promote resilient, inclusive, and sustainable economic development. These global issues are making it more difficult for countries to achieve sustainable economic growth. However, there are also a number of opportunities that are emerging, such as the growth of the digital economy, and the increasing demand for sustainable products. By addressing the challenge and seizing the opportunities, countries can be achieve economic growth in the years to come.